of the federal guidelines,
right.
but I was being criticized from the other side saying that this was that I wasn't doing enough on that regard. And then obviously we reversed course very quickly and then led the country for the next few years.
And by the way,
I'm here to tell you, man, it's hard to do that. When you know, going against the federal government, going against, you know, the powers to be, even in your own party, you know, that takes a lot of courage, bro. I mean, that's just something. And then reversing course, like, all right, we started doing this, but you know, you continue to look at the information, you continue to look at what's being provided. Plus, you're a governor, so you're going to have access to information that the average person wouldn't have access to. You get to talk to business leaders, you get to talk to scientists, you get to talk to whoever you need to speak people within the government who aren't necessarily elected officials, but people who know what's going on. You're going to have a direct line with the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. And it takes a lot to do all that. And that's true leadership. That is true leadership. Like, all right, this is what's going on. We're not buying what's being sold by the feds or whatever. This is our state. We're gonna take a different tack. We're gonna try this, and we're gonna see what's going on. I can appreciate that. I can absolutely appreciate that. It just takes, you know, that's not something you take lightly. You feel me? So, you know what I mean? You got to get credit where credit is due. You know, DeSantis and his people, I think they made the right call on that.
To some of the Republicans that criticized you to say he shut it down, that wasn't a shutdown. That was a test to see how things were reacting, to see what it was going to be like. And then you went back to business as usual based on what you saw. UFC 261, first full capacity event that took place April 24, 2021 in Jacksonville. Then you have LeBron. I don't know if he's ever
seen. That we actually did the first live sporting event. COVID came, everyone freaked out, all the sports leagues shut down.
Right.
Dana White was trying to find a deserted island. So I called him. I said, Dana, just do it in Florida. And he's like, all right. He's like, where can I do it? I was like, wherever you want. And he wanted to make sure that the local mayor would also be supportive, because he's like, I know, I was like, look, I'll overrule him. He's like, no, I want to make sure everyone wants us there. So the Jacksonville mayor was a Republican, wanted him to do. So I think it was the first week of May 2020 when people, well, you know, Governor California is saying, don't even leave your house. We did UFC. Now, we didn't have the stadium filled, but to do that was important because people were acting like we couldn't live life. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So that part right there, he's talking to Dana White. He wants to bring UFC in during the pandemic into Florida. He's like, hey, man, you can do it anywhere in Florida. Dana White, being a businessman and understands politics. He's like, no, I want to make sure that I pick a city that's on board with this. And DeSantis said right there, well, I'll overrule him. I think that was a missed opportunity for Pat to say, what do you mean by that? I'll overrule him. Like that's a question that I would have asked. I mean, hold on. What do you mean you would have overruled? So if he wanted to go to a city and the mayor and the people of that city didn't want to have this event in their town for whatever reason, you're saying you're going to force them to do that? How? What's the legal grounds for doing such? What method or what vessel would you use to force people in your state to do something they don't want to do? It's their town, right? It's their town. It's their county. What do you mean, Mr. Governor? That's the first one. I would have asked that question, like, what do you mean? I just would have overruled them. How does that work? You feel me? And this is, I think that was a missed opportunity. And I'm keeping track. Let's continue.
Desperately.
And so you had that, and so because we stood up for that, Dana's like, I'm always going to come back to Jacksonville. Yep. So he's come back to Jacksonville every year now.
And by the way, not only that, the UFC that they did in Miami was a record-breaking at the gate, even bigger than New York. Dana said in an interview, the post-fight, he said this was felt like what LA was 10 years ago, even more than that. LeBron James won a championship because of you. These guys were the BLM guys, but they ran the playoffs here, which was full of controversy and contradictions.
The NBA bubble, that's right.
But I can go on and talk about how parents feel comfortable here. What you've done with limiting the gender-affirming care, the E-Verify, vetoing wasteful spending. I know the insurance crisis. I made a video about it today, how they're trying to kind of give you a hard time because you stand up to BlackRock and ESG. And then CBDC, which was one of the biggest ones that you guys rarely talk about. I'd love for you to talk more about that. Crypto community's now become crypto capital in the world is Miami. It's here. It's what you guys have done. And then I talked about that before. But I want to get into an issue right now that we're
all really good points. The crypto stuff, excellent point. DeSantis never talked about it. He talked about the gender affirming thing. Okay, DeSantis never talked about it. The real big one is the insurance crisis going on here in Florida, right? The government of Florida has been very pro-business on this, and it's definitely a crisis, and it's to the point where it's forcing some people to leave the state because they can't afford to insure their homes. And Pat mentioned that. The governor never spoke on it. Right? So that's another one. Right? So when you have the central bank digital currency, I would have loved to hear the governor talk more about that. I'm sure the crypto people would have loved it too. The gender thing, with kids, I know that's a real big thing out in California, wherever. Not so big here. And I'm pretty sure, again, I would like to hear, we know some of the stuff that the governor has done, and it's definitely affected schools. It's affected teachers. There's been a lot of teachers who've walked away from the business because of some of the initiative and some of the laws or whatever that this particular governor has created. I would love to hear him speak on that. The insurance crisis. I'm just writing this stuff down. So, we're going to watch this video. We're going to watch this interview, but they never circle back to that stuff, which I would have loved to hear, but they never circle back to it.